Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an honor and a privilege, as it is every day, to have you guys joining me here on this weekend. Now, on the weekends here at the John Campea Show, we do things a little bit differently. Like, we're more laid back. We're not as polished. We don't have a movie news feed or anything like that. And we leave a little bit of extra time for the live questions that come in later. But we still start off the show with main topics and conversations that you guys send in to me. How do you send in an email to get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's simple. You just email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. Put the word topic in the subject line. And as always, guys, keep those emails to 90 words or less. All right, guys, it's time for us to get into it. I've got 5 questions that I've picked out from the emails you guys have sent to me. Let's get things rolling. And we start off with the first question. And the first question comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Tyler Roberts, who writes, "Hey, John, did you see that Avengers Infinity War broke the record for Fandango pre-ticket sales in just 6 hours? That's insane. My question again is, do you think this film will get closer to the Force Awakens box office record than you previously thought?" All right, thanks a lot for the question. And yes, there's a big headline going around right now. And where did it go? I'll put it up here in just a second here. There's a big headline going around right now about just how much the advanced ticket sales for Avengers Infinity War has been doing. It's basically this. Ticket sale, pre-sales, this is all over the place. This is from The Verge, but it's been on Variety, it's been on The Hollywood Reporter. Ticket sales for Avengers Infinity War have already surpassed Black Panther's record. Now, what the headlines are basically alluding to is saying that the advanced ticket sales for Avengers Infinity War, which did something brilliant, all right? They launched the new trailer at the same time that they launched the advanced ticket sales. Brilliant move. Completely brilliant move, because that trailer drops, hypes everybody, and then the end of the trailer comes, says, "Tickets available now," and everybody's like, "What? I can buy them now?" And they run out and they buy their tickets. I'm sure a lot of you guys did that. You know I did that too. So it was a brilliant move. Now, there is something very, very, very important to point out here, okay? And that a very, very, very important thing to point out here is this. While it is true that Avengers Infinity War just broke a record for advanced ticket sales, breaking the previous that record in just 6 hours. You know, the record it's talking about is Black Panther set a record for superhero movies selling tickets in its first 24 hours. Avengers Infinity War broke that record in just 6 hours. It sold more tickets in just 6 hours than Black Panther sold in the first 24 hours. But here's the important little asterisk here, okay? When you read into the story and dig into the story, it is not the all-time 24 hours advanced ticket sales record. It is the 24-hour pre-advanced sales ticket record for superhero movies. That's the record Avengers Infinity War just broke in 6 hours. Was advanced ticket sales for Marvel movies. And by extension as well, comic book movies in general. It wasn't the overall record for most tickets sold in advance in the first 24 hours. That record, I believe, still belongs to a certain little movie that this symbol is a part of, also known as The Force Awakens. So, it's important to keep in mind that this record that it just smashed is a specific record. That specific record is most pre-sale tickets in advance for a superhero movie, or for a comic book movie, for a Marvel film. That record was held by Black Panther. It is now held by Avengers Infinity War. But to the best of my knowledge, it didn't beat the advanced ticket sales of Star Wars The Force Awakens, which of course was infamous for crashing ticket server websites and all that kind of nonsense and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's an interesting thing too. And we talked about this a number of, maybe about a month or two ago. But it's important to keep in mind that I think for the next year or two, these records of pre-sale ticket records aren't all that important for the next year or two. And here's why. Because we are in a change of dynamic within the movie-going culture where, look, a hell of a lot of the movie-going audience still don't buy their tickets in advance. A hell of a lot of the movie-going audience still just buys their tickets when they show up to the theater and buy their tickets. The vast majority of the movie-going audience still does it that way. We are seeing a change happen. More and more people are beginning to buy their tickets in advance. And because we have that, look, a lot more people today buy their tickets in advance than bought their tickets in advance 6 months ago. 6 months from now, a hell of a lot more people will be buying their tickets in advance than buy them today. So because of that, I think for the next year or two, we're going to see this advanced ticket sales records change like 5 or 6 times. I think over the next year or two, we're going to see that record broke 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times because more and more people are starting to do that. And we still see that curve happening. In about 2.5 years from now, I see that most people will be buying their tickets in advance, and then the records will start to mean more than they currently do today. But still, with all of the success that Black Panther had, and continues to have, by the way, for Avengers Infinity War to pop out and break that record in just 6 hours, its 24-hour record in just 6 hours, is damn impressive. Of course, once again, they did the brilliant marketing move of playing that trailer the day that the tickets went on sale. That is something I don't believe that Black Panther did. So that was a huge smart move on their part. Now, that still brings up the question again, because people hear that Avengers Infinity War breaks record for 24 hours, not realizing that was just for comic book movies. And people start up the conversation again. Well, it's gonna beat Star Wars The Force Awakens opening weekend. I still don't think it will. Actually, I still think Star Wars The Force Awakens will still quite comfortably have the record. And by comfortable, I don't mean by 30 million, but probably a good 10, $12 million margin. I think Star Wars The Force Awakens will still have that opening weekend box office record. I see Avengers Infinity War, they're projecting right now for about 212. I see Star Wars, or Avengers Infinity War probably exceeding that. I see Infinity War coming about 220, 225, 228. Somewhere along those lines. But look, we're still 6 weeks away. The hype engine could get even bigger between now and then, and those numbers could change. I just think those estimate numbers they're saying right now of like 210, 212, I think that's a little low. I think it's going to come in higher than that. I think it's going to become the second biggest opening weekend of all time. I don't think it's going to catch The Force Awakens. You never know, though. You never know. It's possible, but right now I still think it's going to fall like a good 10, 12, $15 million short. But we'll just have to see. I want to know how many of you guys have bought your tickets already. I know I got mine, and I'm probably going to see it 2 or 3 times before even opening night, but that didn't stop me from buying my opening night tickets. I'm excited. All right, let's move on to the next topic. And the next topic today comes to us from Kent Garber, who writes, I had little interest in Bond 25 until Danny Boyle officially joined. I wanted Craig to retire from Bond, but now this film is my most anticipated. Has Boyle increased your excitement for a great Bond film, and should James Bond be played by a woman post Craig? Well, I'll take one of those questions. The question about, has this increased my excitement? I don't know that it's increased my excitement, and the reason I don't think Danny Boyle directing has increased my excitement all that much is because I was already expecting either Christopher Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, or Danny Boyle to be the director. Like we had heard for some time, it was probably going to be one of those 3. And any one of those 3 is a big win. In my opinion, you get any one of those 3 directors, that is a big win for the James Bond franchise. Since I was already expecting one of these 3 titans of directing to direct the next James Bond movie, my excitement level was already pretty amped up. Finding out which one it is then hasn't increased my excitement because I was already super excited because I knew it was going to be one of those 3. And I would have been completely happy with any one of those 3. Actually, there's probably a good 6, 7, 8, 9 other directors that I also would have been really, really happy with. But already knowing in advance it was going to be one of those 3, my excitement level was already peaked. Finding out which one specifically is doing it doesn't increase it any bit more because I already knew they were one of the possibilities. I am very excited for Danny Boyle directing it. Danny Boyle is an exceptional director. He's done a plethora of different styles of movies, whatever, whether you're talking about Train Spotting to Slumdog Millionaire to 127 Hours to 28 Days Later. I mean, he's done everything like across the board. He can be funny, he can be serious, he can have deep character, he can do all that kind of stuff. And I'm really curious to see how he brings that talent set to a James Bond movie, which will probably be Daniel Craig's final movie as James Bond. Daniel Craig is my favorite Bond of all time. I think he's that perfect amalgamation of the suave James Bond that we got in Roger Moore and the badass James Bond we got in Sean Connery. To me, Daniel Craig has been the perfect amalgamation of those two in one character. And that's why he's my personal favorite. It'll be his face. Now, should they replace him with a female character? I normally don't care if you gender swap roles, but to me, thinking about, like, I don't care if you change races of the James Bond character. Like, a lot of people suggesting maybe an Idris Elba for James Bond. I'm totally cool with that. The race of James Bond is not a key essential core element to who that character is. Unlike, say, Black Panther, where being an African character is core and essential element to who he is. James Bond being white is not actually a part of who his character is. He's just always happened to be white. So I don't care about that. However, being male does seem to be a core essential part to the identity and what James Bond is. I would be much happier if they created new, like, for instance, they were just talking the other day that Ridley Scott is in talks to direct a female kind of James Bond-esque character in Queen and Country. See, I'm all for creating some super spy roles for female characters, but giving them their own instead of just like taking over James Bond. Because while I don't think the race of James Bond is a core essential element to who that character is, I do kind of feel like being male is a distinct key thing about who James Bond is and who that character is and how we understand that character and the mannerisms of the character. He is distinctly male. And that's why I would be more that. But make him Asian, make him black, make him Pakistani, make him Caucasian. I don't care, because none of that is important to who the character is. But I do feel being male is an important part of who the character is. So for that reason and that reason alone, I would say keep James Bond male, but let's get some more awesome spy action thrillers with female characters like it seems like Ridley Scott is going to be working on with Queen and Country. I'm very excited about that film. All right, let's move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Salman Shah, who writes, one of my most anticipated movies of the summer is Sicario Soldado. Originally, it was simply called Soldado, which I prefer. Sony seems to be putting the Sicario 2 in front of it for marketability. However, the first Sicario wasn't a smash hit, so my question is whether it is necessary to call the film Sicario 2. Won't this choice make audiences who haven't seen the first film shy away from Soldado? You know what? I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I don't think seeing Sicario 2, and actually, let me pull up Sicario and see what it did at the box office. You're right. It wasn't a massive hit. I remember that. It wasn't a massive hit, but it did okay. And in particular, it did quite well on home video as well. Like, I mean, it made close to $100 million on just a $30 million budget. But it picked up some notoriety moving forward as well. I am a huge proponent of always putting numbers on the movies. I'm a huge proponent of that. I prefer, I'm okay with the subtitle as well, but have the number there as well. So I prefer, for instance, Iron Man 2 over Thor: The Dark World. Was that the name of Thor 2? Thor 2 was so forgettable. But I would have preferred them call it Thor 2: Dark World. I would have preferred Thor 3: Ragnarok. I would have preferred that. I think that just because 15 years from now, when you're talking about these movies and you're trying to remember which order they're supposed to be in, just put it in the title. Keep it simple. Put it in the title. So I prefer Iron Man 1, Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3. I just prefer that. And yes, I do think putting Sicario 2 in there, you mentioned it yourself, it's for the marketability. And I think they're going to have a much easier time marketing it with Sicario 2 Soldado in their title than they would if they just call it Soldado. I think that would have confused more people or made more people check out of it. But if they know, this is a continuation, a lot of people have seen the first one, especially post-theatrical run, I think they understand doing this is going to bring out more people. So I agree with it. I agree with the move. I think it's the right move. But at the end of the day, it's just a title. I mean, the title of the movie is not going to increase or decrease the quality of the movie. So it's all about marketing. That's the only consideration, is marketing. And I think putting Sicario 2 at the beginning of the title is better for marketing. That's just my opinion, though. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. You leave your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, let's move on now to the fourth question. And the fourth question today comes to us from Calvin Bose, who writes, just saw Tomb Raider and enjoyed the film a lot, but one thing bothers me. Why is almost every action movie made that you spend 2 hours watching it only to have a setup for another movie? It wouldn't bother me if it was once or twice, but it's over and over again. It's like a 2-hour trailer for the next film. James Bond didn't have to, and it went on for 50 years. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Calvin. I'm going to disagree with you on this one, though. Like, when I watched Tomb Raider, and I'm not going to give away any spoilers here, and surprise, surprise, I actually liked Tomb Raider. I didn't love it, but I liked it. It's pretty good. Tomb Raider's pretty good. When I watched Tomb Raider, I never at all felt like the movie was just a setup for a second part. I never felt that. As a matter of fact, I think if you really go over beat by beat in the story, the movie does a good job having its own 3-part act. It's a beginning, it's got its middle, and it's got an end. And it concludes the story. That's the story of that movie. It ties it up. And then after it concludes its own story, then it just does a quick little thing to open a door for another film. There is a big difference between feeling like all this movie's purpose was to set up the universe or to set up the sequel. And you feel a little bit like you wasted your time. You feel like everything they did in the first act and the second act and the third act was just to set up the sequel. But I've got to disagree about that on Tomb Raider. I felt Tomb Raider had its own contained story. I felt it had its beginning, middle, and end. I felt like it brought all of its story that it was tackling in that entire movie, it brought it to its conclusion. It had a satisfying ending. And then it tags on a little extra thing to wink their eye, tip the hat, and open the door for a sequel. But I never felt for a moment watching Tomb Raider as if it was nothing but a marketing tool for the next movie. I never felt that at all. And I honestly think that if you go back and watch the film again, you'll realize that, hey, take out the last 2 minutes of the movie and it does nothing about setting up a franchise. It's its own self-contained story. And then they tag on a little something that opens the door. And I've got no problem with that. Now, we have all seen movies that are guilty of what Calvin's talking about. We've all seen movies that, oh God, I just feel like, why don't you just focus on the movie that's in front of you? Make the movie that's in front of you, make a good movie. Don't worry about the next one. We've all seen movies be guilty of that. But I honestly feel like Tomb Raider isn't one of those films. And again, I don't think Tomb Raider is the greatest movie of the year by any stretch of the imagination. I think it's okay. I think it's pretty good. But that is one of the things that I don't think it failed at. I think it does a good job of having its own beginning, middle, and end, and having its own self-contained story. So anyway, that's just the way I feel about it. All right, let's move on now to the final emailed in topic today, and then we'll go over and take some of your guys' live questions. And the final emailed in topic today comes to us from Kevin Rapecki. And Kevin Rapecki writes, "Hey John, love the show." Thank you so much, Kevin. "My workday wouldn't be the same without you. I'm so glad I can help you guys through your workday." All right. Let's see. My workday wouldn't be the same without you. You often use the phrase, "that's too inside baseball." Isn't a good story no matter if it's the general movie-going audience hasn't heard of it before? Thanks, and keep bringing it. All right. Thanks a lot for the question, man. And, I think what Kevin is mostly referring to, and I have used this phrase every once in a while. Every once in a while, somebody pitches a movie idea. And what I'll say is that, sometimes I'm like, that's awesome. Sometimes I go, ooh, that might be a little too inside baseball. Like a crisis movie or something like that. I'll say it's a little bit too inside baseball. Now, he brings up a good question. Isn't a good story a good story? Well, yes and no. You see, a good story is a good story, but if you want to tell a story that it is required to fully grasp what's going on in the story, you have to have a whole bunch of background knowledge first to fully appreciate, or to even, midway appreciate and understand what's going on in this news story, then that's a problem. Here's a great example. One of the best comic series I've read in the past 5 years, and probably the best cutscene movie of a video game ever, is Injustice: Gods Among Us. This is a great example, okay? Injustice: Gods Among Us is a brilliant story. It's a fantastic story built within a video game. Again, though, you can jump on YouTube and watch the cutscene movie. I think it's like 3 hours or something like that, where you just take all the cutscenes and piece it together as a movie. And it's great. I really like it. And the comic series is some of the best writing I've read in a comic book in a long time. I just adored it. But if somebody were to come to me and say, we're going to make a Injustice: Gods Among Us movie, and we're going to make it pretty true to the story, I would probably, that's one of the movies I go, that might be a little bit inside baseball. Because to appreciate what's in an Injustice: Gods Among Us, there is a presumption that the viewer and the reader already knows a lot of the background of a whole ton of these characters. When you watch Injustice: Gods Among Us or play it or read the comic books, you can tell that the game and the cutscene movie, whatever, assumes you already know the background of Sinestro. That you already know the background of Cyborg or Deadshot or Black Adam or Nightwing or Batgirl or Bane or Joker or Harley or Solomon Grundy or Lex or Catwoman or Oliver or Arthur or Flash or Shazam or all of these guys. It assumes a fundamental background understanding of who these characters are, so that now when you see them in this environment, it has dramatic impact on you, right? For an average movie-going audience, like for instance, an average moviegoer can walk into Thor knowing nothing about Thor, and Thor takes it right from the beginning. They introduce us to the character, you understand him. It's not inside baseball. You can be a random audience member and watch Thor and fully get it from start to finish. You can walk into Batman Begins knowing nothing about Batman and fully understand what's going on in that movie. You can walk into X-Men having never had a single bit of information about X-Men before and totally be right on board with the movie as it goes. However, there's some stories that don't do that. Injustice pre-assumes that you already have some fundamental background information and understanding of a lot of these characters. And if you don't, then half of the meaning of the movie is going to go right over your head. Like, why should I care that Batman's arguing with this Nightwing dude, with this dude wearing a Nightwing outfit? Why should I care about what's the significance of that? Well, if you already know the background of it, you know how awesome that scene is. But if you don't, it's going to be lost on you. And that's what I mean sometimes when I go, oh, I kind of feel like that as a movie is a little too inside baseball. It relies on an audience that already has a fundamental understanding of so much of that universe. And if you don't have that, then a lot of the meaning of the movie is going to go over your head. And that's just kind of how I feel about that. And that's why a movie like Injustice: Gods Among Us and some others, while a good story for a certain audience, may not be a good story for a wider audience, because that wider audience just doesn't have the prerequisite background information and understanding of that universe that you need to have to dive into that particular story. So anyway, that's just how I feel about it. Like, then you could make an argument, well, could you make build-up movies? Could you make movies to build up to something like that? That's an entirely different situation. But you couldn't just dive in and do an Injustice: Gods Among Us movie. I mean, that would be a really tough sell. It would be a very tough sell. All right, guys, that will do it for the emailed in topics today. I'm going to jump over now to the live questions that you guys are sending in to me, and let's see what you guys are talking about live. And we start things off here with Digoto1, who writes, do you remember the first comic book you read? Okay, I remember this, Digoto, because you wrote in the other day saying, do you remember the comic book you read? And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, do you remember the comic book you read? That sounded like almost ominous. But it's you clarifying here. Do you remember the first comic book you read? Yes. And by read, I mean really dug into it and really read it. In my childhood, I picked up a few issues of this, a few issues of that. But when I was a young kid, this little comic storyline called The Dark Knight Returns came out. And it, other than watching reruns of the Adam West Batman, that story that Miller put out, The Dark Knight Returns, still fundamentally probably the greatest graphic novel of all time. It was really, and I remember a friend of mine, his first name was also John. I remember hanging out at his house, and he goes into his closet and pulls, "Oh, have you read this? This is so cool." I'm like, "No." And I open it up and being enraptured with it and going, and reading this story and being so smitten with it. Now, I had picked up, obviously as a child, picked up a few other comics, but I never really dug into them, never really read them. The first one that I really dug into and just sat and read was probably The Dark Knight Returns, which is I'm really lucky because that's a great one to start off your comic book reading with, like probably the greatest ever. And that's the first one that I read. All right, let's move on. Next one comes to us from Ryan Crooks, who writes, Black Panther beat Tomb Raider #1 again for 5 weeks. I'm going to make another video about this, and this is not a victory for Black Panther at all. Black Panther only made it made a great amount of money for a first week, but only made about $27 million. That is a number that should have been beat. I really don't count this as Black Panther winning its 5th weekend. This is more that Tomb Raider lost its first weekend, because Tomb Raider should have made 34, 35, 36 million in its opening weekend. And that is easily would have been enough to win the weekend. We kind of thought Black Panther would make 25, 26, 27, 28 million dollars. But Tomb Raider should have made 34, 35. So to me, yes, in the record books, it's going to be Black Panther takes its 5th weekend in a row. But to me, this is not Black Panther winning. This was Tomb Raider losing. Black Panther only made enough money that it should have come in 2nd or 3rd place. Black Panther, to me, didn't win this weekend. To me, Tomb Raider lost it. Tomb Raider should have made 35, 34, or a little bit over that. That's where it should have come in. Instead, Tomb Raider, they're estimating, only came in at 23 million. That is a loss for Tomb Raider, which is too bad because Tomb Raider's a pretty good movie. It's not bad. But yeah, I'll make another video about this earlier. But to me, this is not a win for Black Panther. Black Panther made the amount of money. Like if Black Panther made 40 million this weekend, I would call it a win. But it made 27. It should have been beat. It should have been beat at just making 27. Tomb Raider should have been able to overcome that, and it didn't. So to me, this is more about Tomb Raider losing this weekend than it is about Black Panther winning it. Let's see. Next one, Last of the Time Lords writes, will we get a Bruce Lee biopic, and would you go to the cinema to see your... Time Lords, we've had like 12 Bruce Lee biopics. We've had like a dozen or more of them. We've had tons of Bruce Lee movies. And I don't just mean like movies about Bruce Lee. We've had tons of movies about Bruce Lee. Different incarnations about his whole life, about certain periods of his life. It's like saying, and I'm not making fun of you, Time Lord. It's just, we're buddies here, right? So I'm just jabbing at you a little bit. So I'm just jabbing at you a little bit. It's like saying, do you ever think we'll get a Star Wars movie? You ever think we'll get a movie about the Force? We kind of already do. Yes, we have had many Bruce Lee films about the life of Bruce Lee. I'm sure we will get more in the future. But I just find the way you worded it, I'm just jabbing you a little bit. I'm just finding the way you worded it a little weird. All right. Next one comes to us from Sean Campbell, who writes, let's see. I bet you're pleased that Peter didn't introduce himself as Iron Spider. Oh, I would have been pissed. Don't get me wrong. I still would have completely seen the movie and been totally thrilled. But yes, it really would have bothered me it would have bothered me a hell of a lot if in that scene with Doctor Strange, he says, oh, we're using our made up names. Well, I am Iron Spider. If he had said that, I probably would have gone off. A little bit. Let's see. Chris Miner writes, when Civil War was out, which team, Cap or Iron Man? Oh, Cap, easy, Cap. Cap was in the right. You could totally see where Tony and his side were coming from. You could totally see where they're coming from and why they would take that position. But Cap was right. And even by the end of that movie, even Tony starts to realize Cap was right. As Tony is trying to deal with Thunderbolt Ross and trying to deal with that, he's realizing, oh my God, this is exactly what Steve was talking about. This pain in the ass that I'm dealing with right now, this is exactly what Steve was talking about. So you even start to realize then that Tony was starting to realize, oh yeah, Cap was right. And so, yeah, but I was Team Cap from the very beginning. When it ever comes to moral compass questions, always go on Captain America's side. When it comes to moral compass questions, go on Captain America's side, because he's probably the one that's got the moral North Star a little bit more honed in than a Tony Stark does. And I love the Tony Stark character, but always take Captain America. Let's see. Ben Rayner writes, did the Spidey suit in Homecoming, when he was doing the neighborhood stuff at the start of the film, bother you? Before he unlocked all the functions? No, aesthetically, it's fine. I mean, aesthetically, it's okay. I had no problem with that. It's just once it starts to evolve and they make it into Iron Man Jr., that's when it started to bother me. But the aesthetic of the Spider-Man suit is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with the aesthetic of the suit. Although I'm not thrilled with the aesthetic of the suit in the Infinity War trailer. I don't think that looks good. Again, it's not going to take anything. It's just the costume. I don't care. It's not going to take anything away from the movie. It doesn't even look like Spider-Man to me. But anyway, that's just me. Mary writes, shut the fuck up and eat your soup on a John Campea t-shirt. I'm sure that's one I will try to get made. This all came up, for those of you guys who didn't, I think it was on yesterday's show. Somebody was asking about people who try to crap on you for liking comic book movies. And I went off a little bit. It's like, those people drive me crazy. I mean, it's fine if there are people who don't like comic book movies. That's fine. That's all. Film is subjective. Nothing wrong with that. But whenever somebody tries to say to me, oh, why are you getting so excited about some silly Star Wars movie? Why are you getting so excited about some childish comic book movie? And that pisses me off. When people try to dump on you for getting joy out of narrative storytelling, whatever form the narrative storytelling takes, those people are sad, lonely, pathetic people who try to criticize or dump on you for having joy over. That's why I never dump on, like, people who love Twilight series. I will never dump on people. Like, I will criticize the Twilight series. I will say I don't like the films and here's why I don't like them and all that kind of stuff. But if there's somebody who likes them, awesome for you. That's great. I celebrate that you love that. Why would you ever criticize somebody for getting joy out of storytelling? It just never ceases to amaze me that some people aren't happy seeing other people happy. You know, and as a part of that, I said, just shut the fuck up and go eat your soup. And I don't know, I just kind of randomly said that. So that's where Mary's coming from when she says that. Anyway, all right, let's move on to the next thing. Sujith writes, many people here in India think Star Wars is for kids alone. A colleague called me immature for being a fan. I responded politely, you're entitled to your opinion, but I think you're dead inside. I hate that. Well, Sujith, I don't think you can say that you responded politely and then go on to tell me that you told the guy he was dead inside. Insulting the man is probably not responding politely. Then again, I would have told him to shut the fuck up and go eat a soup. Again, just going back to what I said before, man, I just don't get it. When something isn't for them, that's fine. Star Wars isn't for you, that's fine. Batman isn't for you, that's fine. The Martian isn't for you, that's fine. Shape of Water isn't for you, that's fine. That's all fine. All film's subjective. I got a lot of movies I don't like. You got movies you don't like. But why would you ever attack somebody for taking joy in narrative storytelling? I'll never understand some pathetic people who feel that way. Anyway, and that's like, even for me, what movies do I hate the most? The prequels, right? But what do I always say? Hey, I hate the prequels, but if you like the prequels, good for you, man. I celebrate that you find enjoyment in them, and that's great. I'm not one of them, but I'm glad that you are. I mean, that's just the way. I just don't understand anybody who has an opposite feeling to that. Anyway, Last of the Time Lords writes, do you think we will get a Ride-Along 3? I don't think so. I was actually kind of pleasantly surprised by the first Ride-Along. I thought it looked really stupid, but then I watched it and I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of good. I didn't appreciate the second one nearly as much. And I don't believe it did nearly as well. So I don't think, and Kevin Hart's calendar is just getting busier and busier. So no, I don't suspect, I mean, you never know. You never know. But I don't suspect that we're going to get a Ride-Along 3. All right, we move on. Mary writes, in the UK, Infinity War is only showing IMAX 3D, not regular IMAX. Oh, that's interesting. I can't stand 3D. Everybody knows that. I hate 3D. If I have no other option but to see something in 3D, fine, I'll watch something in 3D. But generally speaking, I will always try to avoid watching something in 3D if I have the option. I will not watch something in 3D if I have the option. So that's really unfortunate that they're doing that out there, man. They get to charge more for a ticket for an IMAX 3D than a regular IMAX, which is, whatever. But I cannot wait for 3D to die, man. Until they truly fix and revolutionize 3D to the point that it doesn't affect the image, you don't have to put the stupid tinted film over your eyes, all that kind of stuff. Until they fix that, I just want 3D to go away. I really do. It's a useless gimmick to me. Let's see. Last of the Time Lords writes, will we get a God of War movie in your thoughts? There's been lots and lots and lots of talk for a while about a God of War. There's been several studios that have even put it into some stage of development at different points that never really came to fruition. I got to believe that we will. I mean, it really depends. I mean, Tomb Raider isn't going to help. Tomb Raider opening to $23 million is not going to help the case for a God of War movie. It is just looking like Tomb Raider, one of the most celebrated video game titles of all time, and it's even not a bad movie. And it only gets out $23 million for the people. It doesn't bode well. It does not bode well. And I got some really other bad news for you. This is going to hurt the chances of The Last of Us movie and Uncharted, both of which have been in certain stages of development. But I think the studios are going to look at this. Distributors are going to look at this result for Tomb Raider, and it's going to go, and this is going to hurt the chances of Last of Us ever hitting a screen. This is going to hurt Uncharted's chances of ever hitting the screen. It's unfortunate, but it's going to hurt. I'm not saying it's going to kill it, but it's going to hurt. And we'll just have to see what the repercussions and the fallout of this is. Tyler Roberts writes, can Thanos be the preeminent villain of this generation in your opinion? Will they deliver on Thanos? I doubt it. I mean, not that I don't doubt that Thanos is going to be a great villain, but what have we to base on to call him the preeminent villain of this generation? I mean, we've had a couple of one-liners. Is he going to be a powerful villain? Yes. But look, other than Darth Vader, cinematically, or even specifically in comic books, who is the preeminent villain? It's Heath Ledger's Joker. Clearly, it's the Heath Ledger Joker, right? And he was the least powerful of any comic book villain we've ever seen. I mean, Heath Ledger's Joker would lose in a fight to just about every other comic book villain ever created. And yet, without question, in my opinion, at any rate, he is the most preeminent villain, the most iconic villain we've had this generation. In the comic book genre, Darth Vader is obviously the big one, but other than that is this. What basis do we have to say that Thanos will take that place? None. He's had like one line in each movie, and he's clearly going to be a very powerful bad guy. That is without question. But I've seen nothing yet to suggest to me that he's going to take Heath Ledger's Joker's place. I've seen nothing to me to suggest he's even going to take Loki's place as the best MCU villain. I've seen nothing to suggest that he's going to be better than, certainly not better than Darth Vader. But all we've seen so far is that he's going to be a powerful villain. And that's great. But I've seen nothing yet. None of us have seen anything yet to suggest he's going to be, the type of a villain that will take the place. Let's see the movie. That's the type of discussion that we really shouldn't have. All we've seen him goes, I'll do it myself. That tells us he's the greatest villain of all time, or even has the potential of being the greatest villain of all time. I just don't think we're there yet. So, look, if you're going to ask, could he be? Well, sure. But Walton Goggins in Tomb Raider could have been the most preeminent villain of all time. We didn't know till we saw the movie. Any villain in any movie could be. Have we seen something that suggests that that's a real possibility? I don't think so yet. And I think Thanos is going to be a fantastic villain in the movie, but to take the place of Heath Ledger's Joker or Darth Vader, things like that, there's been nothing to suggest that at this point. At least from my point of view, at any rate. Tyler Roberts writes, Geo writes, Diggin' Drac Avengers theme song in Infinity War trailer. Diggin' Drac Avengers theme song. I'm not quite sure what it is you're getting at, Geo, so I can't really comment because I'm not really sure what it is you're saying there, man. Suja writes, gonna watch Annihilation tonight. I love cerebral sci-fi. That's what I live for. Will you be reviewing it? No, I'm not going to review it. I honestly didn't like it all that much. I felt like the movie thought it was smarter than it actually is. That's just me. I didn't hate it. No. Don't misinterpret me. I did not hate the movie. Yeah, I thought it was all right. It was all right. I know a lot of other people do like it, but nobody went to go see it. And I didn't really care all that much for it. So since nobody really saw it and I didn't care all that much for it, I didn't really see a big pressing need to review it. And, I'll never review a movie after it's been out in theater for a couple of weeks already. Like, I'll either review it before it comes out or within a day or two that it comes out. And if I don't review it by then, I probably won't review it. Because no one's going to watch a review of a movie that's already been out in theaters for a week or two. So there's just no point for me to do it. So I never really felt the need to do it because I just didn't think putting the energy into making a video review for Annihilation as a movie I didn't care about all that much. And nobody was really going to watch. I might get, 5,000 views on it. I decided it wasn't worth the effort. So no, I'm not going to be reviewing it. Nathan C. writes, you recently said scores shouldn't be stars, but an original score makes a story memorable to an isolated part of the brain, like a unique personality. Star Wars, Lawrence of Arabia, Indiana Jones, Lord of the Rings. Temp tracks lose this. I think you're absolutely wrong about that, Nathan. I completely disagree with you. What makes those... Here's the thing. From my point of view, the role of the score is to mold itself to the movie in particular. And that seasons a scene, much like seasoning seasons food, right? You take the food, you understand the nature and the complexity of the food, and what other flavor can we add to this food that will heighten the overall experience. If it's an already salty dish, you don't add more salt. If it's an already kind of spicy dish, you don't necessarily add more pepper, but you find what is the texture, the nature of this food, then you figure what seasoning can we bring to the table to heighten the experience with it. That's kind of the analogy with a movie and then bringing a score to it. What score can we bring that will heighten, elicit feelings and emotions and all that kind of stuff? And it very well could be a director and an editor come across, like, for instance, a temp track that's like, this nails it. I either want this specifically or give me something very similar to this, because in a director's mind, this music that we have right here does fit it exactly. It's like an argument to be made about, do you buy a suit off the rack or do you get it tailored? Because sometimes you can walk in and find a suit off the rack that is perfect for you. Like 100% perfect for you. I don't wear many suits, as you can tell. I don't wear many suits, but I've walked in and found a suit that's like fits me perfectly. It accentuates everything that I want. It's a good looking suit. It fits me perfectly. Boom, right off the rack. Why would I go getting one tailor-made when I found one right off the rack that already gives me the look that I want? Then sometimes you can go to a tailor that'll take your measurement specifically and tailor something to you, and maybe that will give you the best results. It's an either or, okay? It's like one could work, the other could work. It's not saying that temp tracks can never work. That's not true. I know some directors who are very adamant that sometimes it works for them just perfectly fine and perfectly well. Better than an original thing they can go out and get somebody to do, because they find a piece of music that is already exactly what the director had in mind. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes you get a composer and a conductor to specifically tailor a piece of music to your thing. And quite often that's the best way to go. But it's not that one is always the right answer and the other is always the wrong answer. That's simply not the case here. Sometimes going with temp track and it nails with the director's vision, because remember, it's all about the director's vision. And if they find a temp track that really comes close or gets incredibly close to what the director's vision is about what is going to accentuate the things about the scene, then that's what you go with. Then that's what you should go with. And if you don't, then quite often the other route is best, with the John Williams and with Zimmer and with whoever else. Quite often that is the best way to go. Sometimes it's the other. It's not an either or, So anyway, that's just my thoughts on that. I'm definitely an interesting discussion to be had there on the whole topic for sure. Let's see. Aiden Norris writes, hey, John, do you know if we're ever going to get a Big Hero 6 sequel? Big Hero 6 is one of my favorite animated and superhero films. Thanks. I loved Big Hero 6. I loved it. And it has staggered me for years now why we haven't got another one, or haven't even heard of one being in process. Now, all of the, Oh, what's his guy's name? Hold on a second. All of the controversy right now, one of the things that is certainly going to hurt a Big Hero 6 is all the controversy surrounding where the hell did he go? TJ Miller, who was one of the preeminent voices in Big Hero 6. You know, TJ Miller is one of the big preeminent voices in Big Hero 6. And we've had some controversy with him lately about sexual assault and physical assault accusations from when he was in university. And, you know, that is dodging him right now. The fact that more and more time goes by and we haven't seen one, which is really too bad because, you know, one of Anne's college friends, Jamie Chung, was one of the lead voices in that movie as well. So that's another reason we've been cheering for another one of those to come along. Although Jamie Chung is doing perfectly fine right now. She's one of the stars in the new Fox series, The Gifted, the whole X-Men spin-off TV series. She plays Blink, and she does a great job in that, in The Gifted. So Anne watches that and cheers her on. But yeah, there are several things kind of mounting up against a Big Hero 6 sequel, and I think this is one of the situations where the more time that passes, the less and less likely it is that we'll get one. I still think there's a chance, and I would love to see one. But yeah, that whole TJ Miller situation surely didn't help. Things. All right. Taylor Haywood writes, from Victoria, British Columbia. I love Victoria, British Columbia. Could Jim Carrey make a comeback? Sure. Yeah, absolutely he could. He's a super talented dude. You put him in the right kind of role, he could be great in. I just saw a great episode of Coffee. What is it? Coffee with Comedians in Cars, or whatever it's called. Whatever that Jerry Seinfeld Netflix show is, where he's just drinking coffee and driving in cars with different comedic personalities. And his episode with Jim Carrey was really great. I enjoyed it a lot. So yes, I absolutely think Jim Carrey could make a comeback. Not a lot of people liked The Incredible Burt Wonderstone with Steve Carell. Jim Carrey was great in that movie. I thought Jim Carrey was wonderful in that movie. So has he gone a little bit crazy? Some people think he's gone a little bit crazy. But yeah, I think it's possible he could make a comeback. Whether he will or not, that's another question. Jake C. writes, do you feel Legion and Gifted coexisted with movies? Nah. Nope. They clearly don't. There are several instances in both Legion and Gifted that clearly show they do not coexist with the movies. They're totally in their slightly own variation of that reality. So I think it was pretty clear that they don't. Let's see. Edmund Zippo writes, got my tickets for Infinity War, April 25th in France. I hope it's awesome. The other day, that was just 2 days ago, she had peeled the lids of her eyes open and laser shot into her eyes. She's out on a hike right now. She's out hiking up to the Hollywood sign as we speak. So she's doing great. Thank you so much for asking, and congrats on getting those tickets. Because I know that couldn't have been easy, man, because those tickets were selling out fast. All right. Next one comes to us from Maximum Effort 44T, who writes, saw an interview with the Russos on Entertainment Tonight, and they hinted Captain Marvel showing up in Infinity War. Have you heard this? Well, there's been hints that Captain Marvel will show up in Infinity War forever. And yes, I saw the interview. There are some people saying, oh, they said she's going to be there. It's like, no, they didn't flat out say she was going to be there. There's hints. They allude to the possibility of that happening. But I think we've all felt for a very long time that there is a good chance that Captain Marvel makes her first appearance in Infinity War. And I still think that's a possibility. But I thought that before we got the Entertainment Tonight interview with the Russo brothers anyway at that point. Maybe you guys felt the same way. But the case is building for it. Look, let's put it this way. I'm not going to be surprised if Captain Marvel is not in Infinity War, and I'm not going to be surprised if she is. We've just heard about it for so long that we know it's a possibility, but we haven't seen anything concrete, so we know it's possible that she won't. So I'm just not going to be surprised either way. And I'm not going to build up my hopes one way or the other. So let's just see how that all transpires. Next one comes to us from Viper91, who writes, hey, John, what made you want to review movies for a living, and how did you get started? Love to hear your backstory, my friend. Well, the best place to truly get the backstory, there's a video I did on YouTube called, basically, it's a video, how to get started in YouTubing, podcasting, and blogging. And it's like a 2-hour video. If you search on YouTube, John Campea Getting Started. If you just search for that, the very first video that will probably come up is that video. It's like a 2-hour video. And in that thing, I tell like a good 10, 15-minute story about how I got started. Here's the basics of it. I have been a lifelong film fan. My earliest childhood memory is my mom watching Star Wars with me. It set the creative direction for my life. So while I was living in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, I started a blog to keep everybody back home up to date with what's going on with me. So I could put up pictures and keep everybody back home up to date with what was going on in my life. I started realizing about 80% of the things I was blogging about was movies. So I bought this little domain name. This is how early it was, because the domain name, The Movie Blog, was still available. I bought the domain name, The Movie Blog, started a website. It started getting 10,000. Like, it started off with 100 viewers in a month, and I thought that was great. But then I started getting 1,000 readers every month, then 10,000, then 50,000. And then eventually I moved back to Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, started working in law. And it was finally when I hit about, I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 readers a month. My friends had what I call the intervention with me. A couple of my friends took me out to lunch and said to me, John, this is what you want to do. Quit your day job and just do this. And so I did. I quit my day job. I had some money saved away. I'm very good with my money, so I had a lot of money saved away so I could live off my savings. And I was making about $400 a month on advertisements when I got started. But then, $500,000 grew to $1 million. Then a $250,000 grew to $500,000. Then $500,000 grew to $1 million. Then Time Magazine did an article on me about the growing influence of online film pundits. And then AMC called me and said, we want to start this thing online. Will you come and run it for us? So I went and started doing it with AMC and blah, 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 and that's how it all went. But anyway, there's a lot of other details in that story, but go find it in that video. That's the best place to get it. On to Vegas writes, maybe Hawkeye is the one in the Hulkbuster, and that's why we haven't seen him. Hey, look, you put LOL, but that's not a crazy theory. I'm buying into the theory that it may be Bruce in it, but it's not a crazy theory. Somebody put on the live chat the other day the theory that what if, because we've heard them say that Hawkeye might be off on his own solo mission, and we're going to see him off on his own solo mission. Somebody came up with the theory that what if his solo mission is actually going off trying to find Carol Danvers, trying to find Captain Marvel. That fits. That's a great theory because that theory fits into everything that we know so far. That doesn't mean it's right, but I'm saying that is a theory that kind of fits into everything we've heard so far. So I'm really curious to see how that turns out. Next one comes to us from Maybe One Name, who writes, do you think each Infinity Stone will factor into the events of Infinity War / Avengers 4, i.e. time travel control with the Time Stone, mind control with the Mind Stone? I don't know about that. That seems to be getting a little bit too intricate. Look, at this point, I'm not even sure. I don't feel safe or comfortable trying to speculate about anything that's going to happen with Avengers 4. I just don't know where that's going to end up being. But look, the thing you're mentioning here, it's certainly possible, but it seems like maybe trying to accomplish too much. So my initial feeling on that Maybe One Name is probably not. But it's not a far-fetched theory by any stretch of the imagination. That's certainly, them going about it that way is not a far-fetched idea. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to go really deep into each individual stone, and each individual stone is going to have a major impact in a certain way. I don't think they're going to do that. I think that's a little bit too in-depth. I think that goes a little bit too much, takes up a little bit too much screen time. So I think they're going to focus on one or two major things and then go that route. But again, it's talking about the theory. Does it fit the current set of circumstances? It kind of does, so it's not far-fetched. I just don't think that's what they're going to do. Great question, though. Great theory. All right, next one comes to us from Spencer Smothers, who writes, did the Infinity War trailer help Black Panther become #1 at the box office? If you mean this weekend, I don't think so, because once again, it just made like $27 million. That should have been beat. $27 million should have been beat. It's not like the Infinity War trailer came out and Black Panther made $40 million at the box office, which, was going to defeat anything else that came out that weekend. It just made $27 million. That was a beatable number. That's a number that should have been beat. That is a number that Tomb Raider should have beaten. It's a very beatable number and one that Tomb Raider should have beaten. So no, I don't think the Black Panther trailer, or I don't think the Infinity War trailer helped Black Panther at all. If it made 40 million instead of 27, I'd say yes, but I don't think it did. I think this is just a case of Tomb Raider lost. It's not that Black Panther won, it's that Tomb Raider lost. That's the way I kind of look at it. Santiago Villa writes, Black Panther's fifth weekend top number one in the last 2 years, just Titanic, Avatar, Black Panther, 605 domestic, will hit 1.3 to 1.4 billion worldwide when all said and done. And that's kind of exactly where I said it would be. I said 1.2 to 1.3. I think a couple of weeks ago I said maybe 1.4. So it's going to come in right around where I said it would. Again, though, I just kind of don't see this particular weekend as a win for Black Panther as much as it is a loss for Tomb Raider, which should have made more than $27 million. Next up, Brandon Lawrence writes, random thought. What's the job title of whoever works on open/end credits on a film? Does their name appear somewhere, or do they ironically go uncredited? Well, no, it's the director. They don't have somebody specific on Marvel who does pre-credits and post-credit scene, or opening credits and end credits on a film. Oh, wait, we're not talking about end credit scenes. You're talking about opening credits and end credits. Yes, there is a specific title of that. If you watch in the credits in the movie, at some point you'll get such and such company opening credit sequence. It'll be right there, like such and such a company handled the opening credit sequence, such and such a company handled the end credits sequence. Now, we're not talking just about the name scrolling. We're talking about when, like Black Panther, and they've got art flying in with a name, and then another piece of art flying in with another name, and then another thing comes up with another name, and another thing with another name, right? That artistic sequence, if you watch the trailers all the way through, you will see, spectrograph, opening credit sequence, digital domain, closing credit sequence, and they'll have certain people and certain names that go along with that. So when you get these really big artistic kind of opening credit sequences or end credit sequences, they will contract out to a company, some kind of type of artistic company that will do those. But you can watch for those in the credit sequence. Great question, Brent. I've never had anybody ask me about that before. That is a great question, but the answer is right there in the credits themselves. Good question. Aaliyah writes, hey, appreciate you. Thank you so much, Aaliyah. I rec the Black Stallion. It's a magical, you recommend the Black Stallion. It's a magical and epic movie, a masterpiece. It's an artsy, mature, rated G. I recall Roger Ebert loved the movie. Tried Stardust, Sideways video. I accidentally did Sideways video myself on Stardust because you can only do it up and down on that. I remember as a little kid loving the Black Stallion. And I remember in the subsequent years after Black Stallion, other movies tried their own kind of copycat versions of the film. Now, it's been decades since I've seen the Black Stallion. Decades since I've seen it. But I remember as a kid loving that movie. And then it had sequels too, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I remember as a kid loving that movie. And thank you for the Stardust plug. Yes, it's just you got to remember to hold the camera a certain way when you're doing it because it only records video one way. That's a little something that Stardust should work on. I'll let the people at Stardust recommend that. But that's a great recommendation, Alia. Black Panther. If you guys are looking for a good older movie that you've heard a lot about but never watched, add Black Stallion to your list. Add Black Stallion to your list. It's a magical little film. I really enjoy it. All right. Nathan C. writes, Thanos uses R Stone to turn A4 into Justice League, T Stone to fix JL's. You know what, Nathan, please. I hate when you guys use acronyms. Just write out what you're trying to say. Use R Stone to turn, like Reality Stone to turn Avengers 4 into Justice League, Time Stone to fix Justice League's box office. Seriously, I think insane/grieving SW warps reality and its true threat. I don't know what SW is, but you seem to have a very intricate thought about the way things can play out, Nathan. I'm just not following along with all the acronyms. Let's see. Sam Fisher writes, just saw Toy Story 2 again after a long time last night. It was exactly as I remember and yet completely different. A lot of people forget Toy Story 2, which is a 100% movie on Rotten Tomatoes, by the way. Toy Story 2 was originally going to be a straight-to-home video movie. Originally, Toy Story 2 was going to be a straight-to-home video movie. And then they were like, hey, this is turning out to be pretty good. And then they changed philosophies, and thank goodness they did. And now it's a 100% rated film on Rotten Tomatoes. and one of the great films ever. And honestly, it's so funny because when you think of the greatest trilogies of all time, like I always have these discussions about greatest trilogy of all time. And then whoever I'm talking with, I'll throw in Toy Story. And people go, as if like, what are you talking about? And then they think for a second, they go, oh yeah. Because you're talking about 100% on Rotten Tomatoes, like 99% on Rotten Tomatoes, 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, it is one of the greatest trilogies ever made. The Toy Story trilogy is one of the greatest trilogies ever made. And you're right. Every time I go back and start watching, whether it's the first one, the second one, the third one, you just get swept away. It's absolute magic. I love those movies, man. Okay, let's see here. Next of us comes last of the Time Lords, writes Vince McMahon for president. Oh, God, no. God, no. Sam Fisher writes, what is your favorite Pixar short? Mine is Presto. Mine is The Chess Game, one of the original short films that they did with the old man playing chess in the park against himself. Because not only is it beautiful, but it's the meaning in it is actually quite deep when you watch it. So to me, it's that original one with the old man playing chess against himself. And man, Pixar's put out some of those great shorts. Last of the Time Lords writes, will we see a Red Sonja remake? I don't think so. No, they talked about it for a while with, who was it that was supposed to play Red Sonja? She was dating Robert Rodriguez for a number of years. Hold on a second, let me write it in. Yeah, remake actress. They for years, like they even once had what is the name of the actress? She was in a couple. She was dating. Anyway, it's the redhead. Anyway, they were so set on doing it that I remember at one Comic-Con, Robert Rodriguez even brought a Red Sonja poster with this actress on the poster. And if I cannot remember the name of the actress off the top of my head anyway, but they even had a poster of it with this girl as Red Sonja, and it just never kind of came to fruition. So no, I don't think it's ever going to, I think it had a shot, and now I don't think it's going to happen. All right, guys, just got a couple of minutes left here. Dirk Walker writes, don't like the idea of Avengers dying. Hate to think I'll never see one of my favorite characters on screen again. They never really die in the comics. No, it's true. They never really die in the comics. But, I mean, most of our favorite movie characters are in one movie, right? Most of our some of the all-time greatest comic book or movie characters of all time are in one movie. They have one movie. Some are in two or maybe three. We are lucky that, for instance, if Iron Man is one of your favorites, we've had him in, 7 or 8 movies? If he dies, he dies. I don't think he's going to die. I don't think Captain America is going to die. I don't really think any major character is going to die this one film, but we'll see. And I'm cool with them killing whoever, as long as it's not fake killing. Don't kill them and say, oh, he's back at the end of the movie. That part I hate. All right. This next one comes to us from John D'Amato, who writes, John, do you feel like Ant-Man and Wasp are being swept under the rug for Infinity War and Black Panther? Seems like not a lot of anticipation for the movie. Thanks and keep up the great work. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that right now. They just put out their first trailer. Ant-Man and the Wasp is months away. It's months away. So they're not worried about it. The hype for that movie will build once Black Panther is out of theater, once Infinity War is out of theater. And I have a feeling that Infinity War is going to hype Ant-Man and the Wasp. Actually, let me just pull up the actual release date. Ant-Man and the Wasp release date is July 6th. So yeah, it's months away, right? It's going to be 2 months after Infinity War. So it's being kind of swept under the rug right now, but don't worry about it. By the time Black Panther has done its run, and by the time Infinity War is in its run, the hype machine for Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to build. Look, Ant-Man and the Wasp is not going to be $1 billion film, but it doesn't need to be. But it's going to be a $600 million film. It's going to be a $700 million film, and it's going to do just fine. Don't worry about the hype for it right now. Marvel knew what their marketing plan was when they set up their release schedule this way. They know how they're going to build up to Ant-Man. Don't worry about it. It's going to get plenty of hype, plenty of push. And I think Infinity War itself in the movie is going to be pushing some of the events in Ant-Man and the Wasp. And it's going to be seen as an integral part of the overall Avengers story. I think Ant-Man and the Wasp is going to be an integral part of the overall Avengers story for Avengers 3 and Avengers 4. So don't worry about that it's not getting hype right now, because you don't want, if you're Marvel right now, you don't want to be hyping Ant-Man and the Wasp all that much. because you want the attention right now. Black Panther is finally finishing its run. You want all the attention now to be on Infinity War. That's where your focus is. You don't want to start splitting attention. You put all your focus and attention on Infinity War. That's what they're doing. But don't you worry. They've got a plan for how they're going to hype Ant-Man and the Wasp, and it'll get plenty of push. Plenty of push when the time comes. Great question. All right, next one. And oh boy. Hey guys, by the way, I'll just let you know right now, if I do not get around to your question, and it looks like I'm not going to get anywhere near all the questions, don't worry. I will copy all the questions that you guys have sent in, and I will address them on tomorrow's companion video. I will do a companion video tomorrow on Monday, and I will get to all the questions that you guys sent in if I don't get around to it here, because I only got a couple of minutes left here. All right, next one comes to us. Am I right up? Yes, I am. So Aaliyah writes in again. Hi, appreciate you. Thank you again. Seems that Hollywood has a love-hate relationship with blockbusters. Academy Awards of recent years show this with Best Picture. The changes with / numbers of nominations and zero in sight. Please. Hey, look, to me, Hollywood loves blockbusters. Hollywood loves blockbusters. It makes them tons of money. Make no mistake, Hollywood loves blockbusters. Have no confusion about that. Hollywood loves their blockbusters. But, and I defend it every year, just because something makes money does not mean it's one of the best of the year. And the job of the Academy Award is not to fake nominate movies because they're popular. If a movie like Lord of the Rings is actually legit the best film of the year, they will nominate it, and it won. Like, remember, all 3 Lord of the Rings films were all nominated for Best Picture. Return of the King won 11 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. They will nominate blockbuster films if those blockbuster films deserve it. And look, I know people don't like when I say this, but this is the truth. I quite often find that the people who complain loudest that a comic book movie doesn't get nominated for Best Picture or whatever are usually when I sit down, talk to them, and I say, which of these films that did get nominated for Best Picture have you seen? And quite often it's none of them, or one of them, or 2 of them. To which then I'll then reply, well, if you haven't watched them, then you don't know that these ones did deserve to be nominated over the popular one. The Oscars are not a popularity contest. But just because, they don't nominate a comic book film for Best Picture doesn't mean they don't love blockbusters. They love blockbusters. And believe me, the Oscars benefit when they do nominate blockbusters. The Oscars would love to nominate blockbusters. They would absolutely love to do that. But unfortunately, they can't always do that. So, I mean, that's just a part of the reality of it. Hold on a second, let me just check something here. When they do nominate... Oh, and I'm being told that the video is out of sync with my audio right now. And that's just a YouTube issue. Nothing I can do about that. So I'm just going to finish this off here quick. Next question comes to us from Jordan Miller writes, have a great Sunday. God, I miss football season. Oh man, you and me both, Jordan. I miss football. I love the Super Bowl, but I'm also sad at the Super Bowl because that means no football for a while. 2 last questions here. Dark Patton writes, thoughts on the controversial French filmmaker Gaspar Noé, Irreversible, Enter the Void. He's my favorite, even though other people like Tarantino. I don't really have much thought because I think I've seen one of his films. I've seen like one of his films, so I really don't have much input to offer you here. And the last question I'll take today comes to us, is a big one from Chris Martin, who writes, Disney live action film coming up besides Lion King I'm looking forward to. Live action Peter Pan and Pinocchio. I'd say have Tim Burton direct Pinocchio with all the crazy things that happen in the film. He would be perfect for Peter Pan, Bill Condon, or Jon Favreau. Here's the thing, Chris. I am not a fan of Tim Burton. And Tim Burton's already working on one. He's doing Dumbo. Tim Burton is, in case you didn't know, Tim Burton is currently making a Dumbo live action film. Live action, CGI, whatever. But it's going to be live action with a lot of CGI, I'm sure. So Tim Burton was working on that. Now, let's see how that turns out. Because if it turns out spectacular, then maybe Disney will want to go back to him again. I must admit that I am not a Tim Burton fan. I do like a couple of his films, for sure. There are a couple I do like, but for the most part, I'm not a big fan of his shtick. And I feel like every single one of his movies has the same kind of shtick to it. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. Certainly, I know lots of people who love Tim Burton, and that's great. I celebrate that. just generally speaking, as a director, he's not for me. But, so, I'm not going to be one to jump up and down and say, yes, let Tim Burton do Pinocchio. But if he does Dumbo, and if he crushes it, hopefully a lot better than what he did with Alice in Wonderland. That movie was terrible. But if he crushes Dumbo, then I could change my tune real fast. I think a lot of people may change their tune really fast. If he does a great job with Dumbo, and he just gives us an emotional, fun, touching, endearing, exciting story in Dumbo, then you're going to hear somebody like me go, okay, yep, I am on board from doing Pinocchio. I am on board for him doing Pinocchio. But, we'll just have to wait and see. There's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts around that. Anyway, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Don't forget the regular John Campea Show, full with movie news feeds and all other things. We'll be back again tomorrow. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. I got some other videos coming out a little bit later today as well, so keep your eyes open for that. Special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. You keep the conversations going, and you support this channel and help keep it alive. All right, just a quick shout out to my Patreon supporters. Listen, guys, if you are somebody who enjoys watching my programming, do me a favor, check out www.patreon.com/John Campea. Find out what it means to be a Patreon supporter of mine, how being a Patreon supporter keeps this show alive, and also what benefits there are to being a Patreon supporter. For instance, there's an audio-only podcast. The fact that YouTube put my audio and video out of sync today won't affect the audio podcast. That'll sound fine. Anyway, check that out, and maybe you'll become a Patreon supporter too. All right, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks again for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until my next video, bye-bye.